let me tell you about Project Spectrum, right? So this was, I think it's fair to say, one of the big surprises of the ONL show, Opening Night Live. We hadn't heard anything about it previously. It is a horror tactical shooter with asymmetrical multiplayer elements. So it's built by Team Jade, who are a Chinese development team. It's sort of published by Tencent, but I think as sort of debuts go, it was a super memorable, super glossy, super atmospheric kind of horror shooter. So modern kind of combat weapons, like you'd expect from a Call of Duty or similar, but with kind of horrifying enemies and set in this big sort of atmospheric haunted house mansion in the rain. I think it made a big impression, and I actually, as a bit of behind the scenes, the people looking after that from a PR perspective got in touch about a week ago and said, hey, you should really come and look at this. And it feels like the sort of best kept secret on the show floor. One of the things I love about these kind of shows when you meet sort of friends and colleagues within the industry is where you have this sort of like industry scuttlebutt where people are like, have you seen this game? It's super exciting. And I think you can see it on the screen here, this sort of almost like Alan Wake, Silent Hill, sort of misty forest. What it reminds me of is games like Fear. Do you remember Fear as a sort of horror tactical shooter, but crossed with kind of Rainbow Six Siege style action? So yeah, hugely impressive debut at ONL, bit of buzz around it, and we've actually seen it being played live in front of us. So we haven't had hands-on, but we have seen the developers themselves playing a sort of true asymmetric multiplayer match. So what you can see here is this sort of these kind of PvE elements, so these apparitions and things like that. So there is a very strong PvE element, but there's also this creature called the Executioner, which I'm sure you'll see later on, which is this sort of... Have you seen the game Carrion with its kind of weird motion
and a little bit like the Mimics and Prey as well?
Yes, it's got that sort of vibe. So there is a player playing as that executioner creature and stalking you around the thing. But as you can see, I mean, like...
Oh, hello. This is spooky as enough.
You've got mannequins.
It's not a horror game until there's a mannequin.
Things falling off the wall. So like these little scripted sequences and stuff. One of the things I think is quite cool is it has a sort of a meter measuring your kind of mental well-being and mental state. And there are a lot of games that kind of do that, and it's almost always just a negative thing when your quote-unquote sanity level drops below a certain threshold. But what the developers were telling us when we went to see the game was that actually, in certain circumstances, this sanity system can actually work in your favor. So there are certain characters and classes where having a lower level of sanity will actually make you more effective in combat. So it's a really interesting balance. It's like, how do you want to play it? Do you want to play as one of those people who stays super safe and tries to maintain their sort of, their fear level?
Okay.
Or do you want to like sail close to the wind and really allow it to drop? The problem is as you allow that level to drop, you will be attacked by sort of apparitions. I mean, this stuff's scary enough
For
already.
example. Yeah.
But these sort of shadowy figures will appear in this real sort of like, sleep paralysis apparition.
Yeah, that
vibe.
was the exact vibe,
And they will attack you. They can physically attack you. But what they were saying was that there might be things like shortcuts in the environment that you can't see when your mental level is kind of hunky-dory. But as you descend more into the kind of madness of what's going on, shortcuts may open themselves up to you and things like that. So I just thought the environments were super slick. The enemy design looks really, really creepy. And obviously the asymmetric stuff, which we'll see shortly, is super appealing as well. Obviously, it's got that kind of like co-op shooter vibe. Again, very inspired by things like Rainbow Six Siege, but also the novel Solaris apparently was a big inspiration for that kind of psychological horror, according to the developers of the game.
It's a highfalutin reference.
Yeah, well, I like it, and I think culturally, there's been a big divide, I think, in video games, like West and East divide in terms of developers and things. But obviously, we're seeing a lot more games coming from the West. Black Myth, Wukong,
from
obviously,
the East.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, from the East to the West.
Yeah.
And so they don't necessarily have the same influences. What we can see here is the Executioner character. It's a real sort of Lovecraftian horror monster. What you'll have noticed in this gameplay is how powerful and fast this creature is, and I did ask them about how it was going to play because it seemed like this thing was massively overpowered. And what they were saying was actually, to a degree, there's a kind of loadout system with that creature, so you'll build it the way you want to play it as well. But what they were showing us was it in one of its fastest and most aggressive forms. But there are other forms of that will be kind of stealthier and more about stalking the other player characters. So there's going to be variety there. I did ask them if they were ever planning on adding, because that's quite a distinctive character design in terms of the tentacles and things. I did ask them if they were considering other sort of horror-inspired designs, and they said nothing planned yet, but it's obviously something they've thought about as well.
And on the campaign side, did they speak on that?
So what they said was that there are sort of two. You're actually not just playing a single character. You're playing what they described as an operator. So it was difficult to get full details because they didn't want to talk a lot about that stuff. I guess it's still in development. But what it reminded me of was XCOM. That idea that you recruit your troops and you select which ones you think will operate best in battle, and then you send those agents out. So it's operator is the kind of overarching mode, and agents are the characters that are out in the field. And so you'll be recruiting them. I assume there'll be a sort of budget that needs to be sort of balanced. And you'll send them out into what they describe as these ember zones. So it's this anomalous event has happened, and these areas have become sort of off limits to the general public, and you're sending it. It's sort of like Ghostbusters with M16s, basically. And so you will be playing not just the on the ground stuff, but you will be also, dictating how, as a sort of organization, this stuff is handled. So interesting take on it, definitely. Other stuff they mentioned was there's a crafting system, a kind of quick crafting system. So you'll have seen in the gameplay demo, at one point the character pulls a rag out of a Molotov and wraps it around a shovel to create a sort of flaming shovel. Okay. So they want to have that kind of inventive crafting thing, but it's got to be something that you can do on the fly in the middle of a terrifying firefight when you're scared out of your mind.
When you're teetering on the brink of the edge of insanity.
Yes.
All right, one to watch. Any word on a release date on that one?
No, we asked about that. They said there's still lots of work to do. This is obviously like a sort of what they describe as a vertical slice, so a kind of flavor of what the game will be like. But obviously we were very impressed by how polished it was.
Yeah.
But they said they've got a lot of work to do. They're desperate to get it into the hands of players, and I think they've been really heartened by the response to it at ONL as a sort of debut of their game. So they're very excited, but I think it's a little ways out, but what a strong showing.
And that was Project Spectrum.
That was Project Spectrum.